And welcome into the MLB Hot Stove Daily here at the Upside Sports Network. Lots to get into today. Michael King destinations. We'll get into the Adolis Garcia signing by the Philadelphia Phillies. We also saw Merrill Kelly sign back with his former team, the Arizona Diamondbacks, a contract that we predicted to the dollar here at the Upside. We're also getting into the Atlanta Braves bringing back Ha-Seong Kim and what that means for Bo Bichette. Several different news and notes from around Major League Baseball. It was quite a newsy day. I have a whole page of notes that we saw over the last 24 hours, so get buckled in. It's going to be a little bit of a long show, so those of you who are just joining us, buckle in. Lots of news to get to, and let's get started. All right, appreciate you guys joining us today. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Be sure to join us every single weekday. We're going to be live around 9 o'clock. We will have a couple of late streams later in the week, usually around 10 or 11 o'clock for our international viewers and our West Coast viewers, but generally we'll be around 9 o'clock. We'll also do a show or two on the weekend as well, but be sure to hit that subscribe. Follow us on Facebook as well at Upside Sports Network. But welcome in, Mark. Welcome in, Travis. I'm Heel. Welcome back, Harley. Welcome in as well. Travis, Jed Hoyler probably watching tonight. He sure isn't doing anything else. I saw that one pop up as I was starting up my stream, and you got me with that one. I like that one, Travis. But the Cubs are kind of sitting idly by. I think the entire industry has been, at least through the winter meetings. But according to several different industry sources, they said to basically expect a fairly busy week. I'd say for the first 2 days of the week, Sunday, Monday, we've had a decently busy start to it. We're after the winter meetings. We're going to see a lot of business get done between now and Christmas. I'm not going to say all of the business, obviously, but I wouldn't be surprised if we saw, say, 33% of the free agent signings get done between now and Christmas. The majority of the bigger signings will probably happen between now and then. And then we'll, of course, have our guys that are lingering out there that are wanting to get their biggest dollar that they can. You know, Bo Bichette comes to mind here as well. But with a Suitor coming off the board, maybe he decides to find one of the chairs before the music stops, as if you will. If you're playing musical chairs anyway, if you're left without a chair, you're out. And Bo Bichette does not want to be left without a chair. So let's get into a few more of these stories. We'll get into, well, actually, we'll do that in just a second. Let's finish these comments first. Mark, now that Atlanta has brought back Ha-Seong Kim, that takes a potential Bichette landing spot away. True, my projection was that he wasn't going to end up there anyway, that the Braves were looking at shortstop, that they didn't like him at shortstop. Rosenthal has reported that multiple times, that the Braves didn't really like his defense at that position. Toronto doesn't either, which is why he was asked to play different positions once he did come back from injury. He wanted to improve his odds of signing a big long-term deal elsewhere in free agency, and I still think he's likely to end up somewhere else. But if his price comes down far enough, I'm sure Toronto would be happy to have another, impact bat back in the middle of that lineup. I'm Heel. Murakami as a Ranger makes much more sense than I think about it. He can be an everyday DH, also platoon with Young and Berger, and learn from Seager now that the Rangers plan on keeping him. And he plays third base, first base. I like the idea, Murakami, just for the headlines, for those of you wondering. Murakami is the big power bat everybody's been salivating over for basically the last year and a half. He's found his market less than what he was expecting it to be, according to some reports out there, that he was looking for, that big mega bucks deal that we saw Yamamoto and others sign. I didn't think he was going to get that kind of money, but I think he was hopeful for a $100+ million contract. I doubt he gets that kind of money at this point. He is the one, true power bat left on the market, but teams are really scared off right now because of his strikeout numbers. His swing and miss is really something that teams are worried about. And while I think teams would be correct in, wanting to not necessarily throw caution to the wind in that case, I think that he's still a very good player that's going to do well in Major League Baseball. The question is he a Joey Gallo type where the swing and miss just completely derails his career? Or is this the, power bat that, Kyle Schwarber is, where he's a good on-base percentage guy who eventually learns to avoid the swing and miss and striking out so much and can be a, high percentage walk and power guy. Can he turn into that type of player? Or does he figure it all out like a Yordan Alvarez and still has the high power numbers and still has the great batting average and on-base percentage, and the strikeout numbers, while they're there, are certainly offset by everything else he does. I think he's so young right now. He's 26 years old. He could grow out of some of these issues that he's having, and of course, just getting with some major league hitting coaches, maybe it could help him improve on all those things that we've been talking about. But from what I've heard, he hasn't found the market to what he was liking. It doesn't sound like he's going to head back overseas, though. It sounds like he's made sure he's resolute in his desire to come to Major League Baseball, and it's just a matter of where he's going to sign. Now, the Mets made their decision by bringing in Jorge Polanco and not retaining Pete Alonso. Several different sources that I saw today were mystified by the reasoning that they made the decision. The defense of Pete Alonso was something that the Mets front office had its issues with, whether they were justified or not, take your pick. But Polanco has played one inning over there, and in the press release that they're signing him is that he'll be utilized as a utility player, DH, and play over there at first base. He's played a grand total of one inning at first base in his career, and he's 33 years old. He's coming off of a nice year, but we're trading 40 home runs of Pete Alonso to 20 of Polanco. We're trading, 100 and change RBIs from Alonso to 70 of Polanco. Sure, it's a cheaper, shorter-term contract, but like Jim Bowden said on Foul Territory today anyway, that this is speaking volumes for the ways the Brewers did things. This is not necessarily how you win in New York. We'll have to see if this strategy ultimately works out. Harley, I like that message that you just put out there. Jeff Wilson keeps hinting Gallen as a Ranger. They are looking at starting pitching. They have had interest in him. They had an interest in Dylan Cease. Obviously, Cease goes for incredibly more money than what Gallen is going to go for. Gallen's probably going to get 4 for 20 per year. So if that's the price tag for him off of what we would call a down year for Zach Gallen, I think that's a price tag the Rangers would be more than comfortable spending. They have more money than they expected to have at this point in the offseason. They've added 3 different arms to their bullpen. They still need more back there. They still added their catcher for only $7.25 million. They have roughly $30 to $40 million more that they can utilize to try to add to this roster. And if Gallen only takes, say, 22 million of that per season, that's something they could easily do and still have room to add another bat possibly, maybe another reliever, a higher-end reliever. Sean Armstrong could come back. There's talk of Josh Sborz being desired as a return candidate from Chris Young. We'll see if all these things come to fruition, but Zach Gallen wouldn't be a bad option at this point in the offseason. Welcome in Andrew, Eric, I'm Heel, Jay Palmer. Appreciate you guys joining us once again. Who will your Cubs sign? I'm going to get starting pitching, and more starting pitching. They're obviously still holding out for Bregman, but I think that one's still going to take a touch more time here. But I think starting pitching is where they need to really focus their efforts right now, because that's going to go very quickly here. If the action is expected this week, I think a lot of it's going to be centered around starting pitching, both in the trade market and the free agent front. We'll see if some of these deals ultimately come to fruition. Who's playing center for the Phillies? Good question. For me, I'm hoping they give some time to the kid, what is his name, Crawford, I think, out there in center field. That's what I want to see them do at some point in the second half this year. But I'm sure they'll be using some combination of veterans that they already have this year. Is Marsh still there? I'm not sure if he is, but I'd use some combination of veterans in the first half, and then I want to make sure my young guy gets some time out there in center, because everything that they were pursuing at the deadline was just as good as the kid that they were thinking about bringing up. But he has no postseason experience, obviously, still young, and if he earns the job out of spring training, by all means, let him run with it. But I would want to give the young kid some time out there. With Adolis Garcia coming in, Nick Castellanos likely being released, they're not going to really have finances to really add there at that position. So there was conversation about them targeting Byron Buxton at the trade deadline this past season. If he truly becomes available, $15 million they could easily stomach. But for right now, I think he's in a holding pattern until they decide to get a deal done with Ryan or Lopez. Once that does happen, I think he basically says, hey, trade me, waive my no trade, get me out of here, Atlanta. Any contending team will do. I think that's ultimately where we're headed with Byron Buxton. I don't know why, but I think Bichette is a Red Sox. He could kind of fit that description of failed free agent tries to cash in with the Boston Red Sox, a la Trevor Story, a la Alex Bregman, and others, where they kind of take a discounted deal with the Red Sox of what they were expected to get in free agency because they didn't get that mega deal. They still signed for some really good bucks from the Red Sox, but ultimately not nearly what they were expected to get. So I do like the idea there. Jay Palmer, could there be a mystery team on Tucker besides Toronto, New York, and the Dodgers? Absolutely. He's the top free agent on the board. I'm sure there's many teams still at least discussing the possibility of Kyle Tucker. When do the Phillies get rid of Nick Castellanos? And when do I think Kyle Tucker to the Brewers would be surprising? Or Crawford in left? Maybe. But I think I'd rather have Crawford in center. But as far as hold on, my screen keeps jumping there. When do they get rid of Nick Castellanos? I think that could happen as early as, I don't know, tomorrow. They've basically been begging teams to take him off their roster. That's not going to happen. It's just time to bite down on the bullet, a la Josh Hamilton at the end of his time with the Los Angeles Angels. Basically, they ate the entire contract and just let him go for free to a division rival and let him try to resurrect his career with the Rangers. Obviously, they weren't happy to see him go to a division rival and actually have success there. But I think the die is cast. He's going to be gone. It's just a matter of when, and I think it's sooner rather than later is the way I would put it with Nick Castellanos. Tucker to the Brewers would be surprising. Absolutely. They're not going to spend on it. But I am hearing some interesting things about the Brewers here in just a moment. You heard Crawford left. Luis Arraez market is limited. Texas is most likely. I'm not sure I would say most likely, Ethan. I would say that they have more money than they were expecting. If they sign a Zach Gallen for that 20 to 22 that I mentioned, that would leave about the right amount of money for a guy like Luis Arraez on a 2, maybe a 3-year deal. I would think it's probably more likely at that point that they would do something like that. But I think there's going to be some other teams that are going to be more willing to give him that money a little sooner than what the Rangers would do right now. I think they're focused on getting their starting pitcher, which is one of their targets this offseason, continuing to build out that bullpen, and then whatever's left of the money, then whatever's left when we get to late January, early February, is then that's when they'll give it to a first base, second base option. Now, they've been early actors in free agency in years past. They waited a little bit this year. They just made 3 signings in a 20-minute span the other day. They could surprise us all and go ahead and add both of these guys right now, signing Zach Gallen tonight for 4 for 80, and then turn around and sign Luis Arraez for 2 for 25, something like that. Wouldn't be out of the realm of the possibility, but I think they're going to wait a little bit on the first base, second base option. I think they're going to try to add the starting pitcher first, but we shall see. Luis Arraez to the Nats would be a nice fit. I think the Nats could go any number of different directions. They just got to improve that team, and they got plenty of money to burn to get it done. 4 for 100 or 5 for 125, book it. That wouldn't be horrible numbers. I would prefer more around the $20 million mark. I think Merrill Kelly signed 2 for 40, got the $20 million number anyway. The only advantage that you could say if you're Gallen's agent in arguing a bigger contract than Merrill Kelly would obviously be term. He's a younger player, has more of a runway, has a better track record of success in the past. Merrill Kelly was off a better year, though. That's why he was more tradable at the deadline. Now the question becomes, how many years does that get you of how many premium dollars? I'm not sure he would get 5 for 25 with how bad of a year he just came off of, but I think a 4-year deal is about right. Now, between 20 to 22 is what I'm expecting, but usually when you look at these free agent dollars, they're always more than what you think. And if it does turn out to be $25 million, which is what Nathan Eovaldi got in last year's free agency, 3 for 75, I wouldn't be overly surprised. Gallen has that ability to be a 1. Eovaldi has the ability to be a 1, obviously. When he's right, I would say Eovaldi has the higher ceiling, but obviously an older player, injury risk. Gallen, younger, a little bit less injury risk, but coming off of a down year, I wonder if the Rangers would be comfortable doing the 25 for 4 years, something along those lines. But those would all be very interesting moves that we could see this offseason. All right, I told you guys I had several different news and notes that I wanted to get into, so I'm going to kind of go rapid fire through these, and then I'll try to catch up on the comments after I get through all of these news and notes. We'll start with Michael King. It's down to 3 teams. Finalists are New York Yankees, Boston Red Sox, and the Baltimore Orioles. He is going to be in the American League East. The Orioles were my pick for him to go to all along, so I'm still going to stick with the Orioles here. 4 for 80 is probably what I think he'll legitimately earn, but I think obviously free agent dollars are going to be higher here, and if it's a 3-team bidding war between 3 AL East teams, he's going to earn more than that 4 for 80 that I expected. So I would expect him to do very well in free agency. I'd expect him to surprise us with the number that he ultimately signs for. Now, Boston, I think they've got plenty of starting pitching already. I think they could still use one more starter in there, but I don't see them necessarily finishing as a winner here in this Michael King market. The familiarity with Michael King, I think, is part of why the Yankees are comfortable bringing him back. I think they were unhappy to have to trade him in that deal for Juan Soto, and I think they would love to have him back. So I wouldn't be surprised if it was either the Yankees or the Orioles. Those are my two picks for where he ultimately goes, but if I had to pick one, again, I'm picking the Orioles. Next news item. Royals are still looking at Jarren Duran, even after adding 2 outfielders already this offseason in Lane Thomas and the guy they just traded for, trying to remember his name, Isaac Collins, I want to say, from the Milwaukee Brewers. They traded a reliever in exchange for him and another piece. For the Royals, they're just trying to add offense, added some speed, add some outfielders specifically. They were unhappy to have to lose Mike Yastrzemski in free agency to the Atlanta Braves. He signed 2 for 23 with Atlanta. Jarren Duran would certainly be an upgrade for that offense. Is there a natural trade there? No. The ask from the Red Sox has been Cole Ragans. Cole Ragans, Royals, though, view as a Game 1 starter in the World Series. Whether you believe that to be the case or not doesn't really matter. The fact is the Royals have a really high view of him, and I think the Red Sox do as well, which is why he would have to be the starting point in that trade. I don't think it'll ultimately happen. I think this is a trade that ultimately does not get across the finish line. That does not mean there is not going to be several trades over the next week or so. According to Jim Bowden, the people he was talking to at the winter meetings says this was the biggest winter meetings ever for trade talk. And that kind of makes sense to me. The reason being, with the CBA negotiations coming up, with a possible lockout pending, trades are going to be paramount right now. Getting those guys in control, controllable assets, prospects, all those kinds of things are going to be better for the long-term health of your organization. Now, if the CBA goes the owner's way and they get the salary cap and everything they could ever wish for, obviously that's going to affect how teams decide to sign free agents in 2027. It's also going to impact what they're signing right now because those contracts are going to have an effect in 27, 28, 29. So Ha-Seong Kim, who signed a 1-year deal with the Atlanta Braves today, is going to be a free agent when all that settles itself out. We'll see if that works out to the player's advantage where there's no salary cap still, or does it work to the owner's advantage where now the salary cap's instituted? Are you really willing to commit this X amount of dollars to Ha-Seong Kim, or would you rather hold out and wait for a Corey Seager or a better player, something along those lines? Those are some interesting items to kind of keep an eye out for, but Bowden does expect a flurry of activity this week specifically, especially on the trade front, and I agree with him. There's several different trades that I think are just about to get done. The question is, when do the teams finally pick up the phone and say, all right, let's go ahead and do the deal that we discussed 2 weeks ago and just finally go ahead and get it done? I think we'll see a lot more of that up as we get closer to Christmas and especially up and into January. But expect a bunch of activity today. Got about 50 of you guys with us right now. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe if you wouldn't mind doing so as well. Those of you who are commenting, we'll go through those comments here after we go through all the news items. A very newsy day across Major League Baseball. We've gotten through only 3 of the line items so far. Plenty more to get into, so be sure to hit that like, subscribe, follow us on X at Upside Ascend, and on Facebook, Upside Sports Network as well. And we'll be live for you guys every single weekday around 9 o'clock. Thursday and Friday, we'll try to start a little bit later for our West Coast and international folks. Let's keep it going, though. The Phillies did get their outfielder. Corner outfielder is going to be Adolis Garcia, 1 year, $10 million. He's getting an elite hitting coach in Kevin Long there in Philadelphia. I think he's going to be able to solve some of the strikeout contact issues that he's had over the last year or so with the Texas Rangers. Remember, this is a former, American League ALCS champ, MVP anyway. He has that type of ability in the bat. Swing and miss has always been there for him. He's still a premium outfielder as well. He can throw out anybody. I think he either led or was, for the majority of the season, led the league in outfield assists from right field. He's a truly special defensive player out there in right field, and he's going to take over for Nick Castellanos. Essentially, the Phillies are going to be paying roughly $30 million between Castellanos and Garcia to handle right field for them next season. I think Castellanos is essentially leaving right now in the offseason. I don't think he'll be around come spring training. So I think it's Adolis Garcia's position. Now, if they can get him right, that's exactly the type of bat they were hoping Nick Castellanos could turn into. A right-handed, power-hitting bat that they can put at the top of that lineup in between some of their lefties that they got. Now you're looking at a lineup that features Kyle Schwarber, Bryce Harper, Trey Turner, Adolis Garcia, Bohm, Stout, several other pieces. JT Realmuto probably coming back as well. This is a really special lineup, and I think Adolis Garcia, if he can get anywhere near the level he was in 2023, Philly certainly did upgrade out there in right field. Now, as far as Adolis Garcia specifically, how does this impact Castellanos? Honestly, I thought Castellanos was gone, even if they didn't bring in a guy like Adolis Garcia. I thought Adolis was going to have to sit or end up going somewhere to where he could get playing time at another spot, in a small market team that really has no shot, of contending, of being stuck on a bad team where he's not going to get a whole lot of great coaching, those kinds of things, like the Pittsburgh Pirates. Not saying that they don't have good coaches there in Pittsburgh, but we see how that offense works. We know what struggles they have. It's offense, and he wasn't exactly going to be around the greatest minds in the game on the offensive side of things in Pittsburgh to help resolve those issues. So I'm a little bit surprised that he ends up with the Philadelphia Phillies. Not saying it's not a good situation for him. I'm just surprised that he didn't have to settle for one of the others. And it sounds like from the contract that he got, $10 million, through arbitration, he was expected to get around $12 million, only a $2 million pay cut to go from the Texas Rangers to the Philadelphia Phillies. Now, you guys know I'm a Rangers fan. Philadelphia is a lot closer to the World Series right now than the Rangers are. Rangers do have some holes on this roster. They're trying to figure out how to, do it on a shoestring budget right now in the offseason. I think they'll manage, and I think they'll be right back in contention on the American League side. But the Phillies are certainly the better team, at least right now on paper. I still have my questions about that rotation, if they're bringing back Suarez or if they go after Imai. But the Phillies certainly did a nice job today bringing in Adolis Garcia. Next item, we talked a little bit anyway about the Mariners and Giants being the finalists for Brendan Donovan the last time we were live with you guys. If you guys remember correctly, the Mariners were seen as the front runner here because of all the prospects that they have. They have a plethora of guys that they could utilize in a trade to make a Brendan Donovan trade work with the St. Louis Cardinals. Donovan certainly would be the impact bat that they're looking for. Rumors out of Seattle are that they're looking for one more bat to go along with Naylor this offseason and then go with young guys the rest of the way. I think that makes sense, and I think the trade market is the best way to go. The contract for Donovan, he's only making, $13.5 million between this year and next combined. That's a really special player for a very cheap contract. With 2 years left to control, there's nothing to say that they couldn't try to extend him as well. There's plenty of second basemen on the market. Marte, Donovan, Lau, almost all these guys are affordable contracts right now, especially Marte and Donovan, and I think the Mariners would be wise to get one of those bats. That would be the impact bat that they're looking for. Mariners, kind of on a separate note here, if they didn't get this trade done, they are looking for one impact bat wherever they can find it. They're not seen as a favorite to bring back Suarez, but they are looking for an upgrade at second or third wherever they can put it in their lineup. They're not necessarily beholden to one position or the other. So say a guy like Bo Bichette can't find a contract he's looking for elsewhere. I doubt the contract would be to the level that the Mariners would be comfortable with, but eventually if they get to, say, late January, early February, and he's not signed a deal yet, that could be a player that could fit for second or third for them. I don't think they view him as a shortstop there. Again, bad defensive metrics, and they already have a guy in Crawford there. But we'll see where the Mariners decide to add. I still think they're probably going to add one of the second basemen here. Donovan looks like the most likely, but don't count out the Giants in that market either. All right, next one, Merrill Kelly, 2 years, $40 million to the Diamondbacks. Turned down more from another team, according to Rosenthal. He had a 3-year deal worth more than $50+ million from a, quote, West Coast team. Kind of read between the lines there. That tells me in the division, the Giants and Padres, I would guess one of those two teams was the team that offered 3 for $50. Both teams are looking for starting pitching. Would make sense. Both of those teams could be the team that offered it to Merrill Kelly. In either event, he was a older guy when he came up through the Diamondback system. They took a chance on him. He found success there. He did not want him to be traded at the deadline to the Rangers because he really likes it there in Arizona. Ultimately, he goes back where he's comfortable. Remember, we saw Corbin Burns last year, go to Arizona because he was comfortable, had his home there, and he wanted to go there. Obviously, didn't take much of a discount to go there, obviously. Got all the money that he wanted from the Diamondbacks. Diamondbacks went ahead and took advantage of a year early before their rotation went into free agency, Gallen, Kelly, etc. They went ahead and solved one rotation spot in Burns last year. They solved another one right now by bringing back Merrill Kelly. And remember, when they trade Marte, they're not going to have Burns at the top of that rotation to start the year. That's why they're looking for controllable starters. They do not want to be in the situation they were this year where they were left with their pants down, with no starting pitchers to really be able to finish the season with. The Atlanta Braves didn't have any starting pitchers. That's why they're looking on the starting pitcher market as well right now. So we'll see if these teams can get what they're looking for in free agency or if they have to go through the trade route. Again, if you guys are just joining us, we'll try to go through the comments here shortly, but so many things to get through on the Major League Baseball side of things that just trying to steamroll through these, and then we'll get to some of these comments here in just a moment. Let's see here. Next one, Diamondbacks Marte trade. Let's see here. They're looking for MLB-ready talent in return, just kind of piggybacking off of the Kelly storyline there, is that they were wanting some starting pitching back. If Marte moves, which I think he will move, they're looking for starters back. They want talent that's not at Double-A. They don't want talent that's down at Single-A. They want guys that are ready to be in the rotation right now, or at least in the bullpen. High-end Triple-A pitchers are guys that are ready to start taking innings at the major league level. To where if they have an injury, like they do already, starting the season with Corbin Burns, they have guys who they can feel comfortable throwing out there and being able to handle the situation. Now, are they looking for guys who have a sub-3 ERA? I'm sure they would love to have that, but I think they're looking for talent, period, however they can find it. So, if you're looking at some of these returns and, baseballtradevalues.com and just trying to sort through which deals actually make some sense, the ones that feature starting pitching coming back to the Diamondbacks is the one that you're going to ultimately see them go to. All right, Padres. They're in need of multiple starting pitchers. According to Rosenthal, they were very active in multiple trade conversations at the winter meetings, and since then, reporters haven't been able to get a straight word out of Preller because he's been on the phone so much with other teams. This kind of speaks to what the type of GM Preller has been in his time with the Padres. They have a lot of payroll commitments. They have been very creative in the way they've addressed their needs in years past, getting into and out of really big situations, something we've talked about over and over and over again here at the Upside. The trade for Soto, bringing in Cease and Arise, the trade for Upton and Kimbrel and so forth. This has happened year in and year out, over and over and over again. Bringing in Soto, trading away Soto, bringing in King. All those kinds of things. They've made all kinds of big moves over the years, and this year will be no different. Expect some very creative moves this offseason. We talked about on Friday the Mets and Padres lining up as really good trade partners. The idea of trading Nick Pivetta, Ramon Laureano, and Mason Miller to the Mets in exchange for controllable starting pitching. Jonah Tong was the ask in that return. We'll see if that deal ultimately gets any traction here. I have yet to hear anything over the weekend that deal advanced any further. But that just tells me Preller is probably on the phone with yet another team trying to find another creative way to get some controllable starting pitching onto that Padres staff. We'll see if they ultimately get it. But let us know in the comment section where you guys think the Padres are going to go for a trade. Literally any team could be the right answer. Padres are that creative, and I think they could literally do just about anything on the trade market. But as far as free agency, I think they're going to be a little bit limited in what they're comfortable spending. Doesn't mean that they're going to be shut down completely on it. I wouldn't be surprised if they tried to look in an Okamoto, or if Murakami's market comes down enough, they might end up getting him. Don't forget about Imai, the starting pitcher. I think he'd be a good starting pitcher for them. And remember, the starting pitching they lost this offseason, they lost Michael King. He's likely going to go to the AL East, one of the three teams we mentioned at the top. They lost Dylan Cease. He signed with the Toronto Blue Jays. And oh, by the way, Yu Darvish, not going to pitch at all next season. Musgrove is coming back from injury. He's not going to be ready for opening day. They need multiple starting pitchers. They basically are looking at Nick Pivetta as their one and a couple of guys beyond that. But outside of that, they have no depth. They traded for J.P. Sears along with Mason Miller at the deadline last year. I would guess right now you pencil him in as the number 4 starter. He's not a starting pitcher in Major League Baseball. He just doesn't have it. I'm sorry. So to me, they need to add probably 3 starters this offseason, and they're going to get creative with Nick Pivetta. I think he could very well be moved. If you trade him, then you're going to need another starting pitcher on top here. There's plenty of options for them to go to. If they get the deal done with the Mets, I think you could pencil in probably 2 starters that would be in the rotation next year for the Padres out of that deal. But maybe Peterson could come back in that trade. Lots of creative ways to improve that Padres starting pitcher situation, but we shall see. Let's see here. We'll go through a couple more items, and then we'll go through a lot of these comments. We got about 65 of you guys with us right now. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe. Follow us on Facebook as well, Upside Sports Network. The Mets have had a very tumultuous offseason, to say the least. I've been hearing a lot over the last week or so about all the different decisions, kind of questionable decisions that they've made. Bowden made the point of how that clubhouse, that he thought they had a really strong clubhouse going into last year with Nimmo, Soto, Lindor, Diaz, Alonso, guys he was really comfortable with leading that team and be able to handle things. Well, apparently 2 of those guys got into it with each other, according to several reports, none of which have been what I would call substantiated, No specific items were mentioned, but now Diaz is gone. Alonso's gone. Nimmo's out of there. Who is going to be the leader in this clubhouse? Is it going to be Marcus Semien? He's 35 years old and in decline. Is that the guy that all the young guys are going to point to and say, yep, that's our captain? Rangers have done it the last few years. He was a good player for them, helped them get to and win a World Series. But a player in decline as much as Semien is, if you're counting on him to be the leader, I have my serious doubts. And who's going to protect Juan Soto in that lineup? You make the questionable decision to move on from Pete Alonso. Okay, what are you going to do to replace it? You're bringing in Jorge Polanco? That doesn't exactly solve your needs at first base, even though in the press release you say it's part of the solution. Could he play over there in a pinch? I suppose. But if you're counting on him playing more than, say, I don't know, 5 to 10 games over there, you really missed the boat here. And so that tells me that the Mets organization, while they're approaching things differently, I don't necessarily view it as the way the Brewers did things, but I would say there's a lot of Brewers traits in the way they think. I think going a little bit cheaper, bringing in a Jorge Polanco, is the fill-in in David Stern's mind for what Pete Alonso brings them. And to me, that doesn't make sense. Murakami would make more sense as far as a power bat. I would have questions, of course, about the defensive ability over there at first base. He's not necessarily seen as a glove-first player, and you already had your issues with Alonso as a glove-first player. How much money is he going to command? Then, of course, what are you going to do in the starting rotation? We've heard very little about their pursuit of starters outside of the trade possibly for Nick Pivetta and be connected to a Michael King. That's obviously not happening. Starting pitching, do you turn to Framber Valdez? Do you bring in a Zach Gallen? Lots of options that they can go to, and yet we've heard bupkis from them. Where are the Mets going to try to improve this roster? The Mets, I think, the front office did no favors for themselves this offseason by trading away several fan favorites, or getting rid of several fan favorites via trade or losing them in free agency, and ultimately are left kind of holding the bag right now going, trust me, bro, we're going to have a good offseason. I don't trust you. David Stearns, you were good in Milwaukee. You haven't really proved it yet in New York. You did get the big guy in Juan Soto there, but what have you done since then? Not much. And granted, it hadn't been a whole heck of a long time, but this offseason, I have my questions about your future at this point. Are you going to trust these young guys? Are they going to fold once you get to the middle of July, August, as their pitch counts start to rise and you've been riding them too long? Once you get to October, they're completely burnt out, and yet again you finish short in the postseason. This is a team that's ready to win. They need to add starting pitching, and we have yet to hear any real solutions from that front office to address those needs. It's still early in the offseason, I guess. We're still before Christmas. They have time to solve these things, but serious questions have emerged about the Mets front office and how they're handling things. The targets, or the players they're targeting, are they the right players? Are they giving too much to these types of players and not enough to their own guys, or not enough to the players that would really make an impact, protect Juan Soto in the lineup to add starting pitching to that rotation? Lots of questions there. We'll see what answers they come up with. One last item before we kind of catch up with these comments here. The San Diego Padres have done a very nice job trying to needle this thing all the way through the last several years now. They've gotten to the postseason 4 out of the last 6 years, but there's a growing belief among the industry that the division has kind of passed them by. They still have a lot of good talent, don't get me wrong, Tatis, Merrill, etc. But the starting pitching just isn't there anymore. The prospects they've traded away. Their value now is in the closer, and a lot of money is tied up in a lot of not necessarily great contracts with Bogarts and Machado. Machado's still a good player, but his contract is completely underwater. Bogarts had a little bit better production last year after being moved back to his original position, but that contract is completely underwater as well. Tatis is a fantastic player, and the contract is great, even with the money they've got committed. Same thing with Merrill. Darvish's deal, obviously missing a whole year, doesn't help that money either. But the Padres are seen as a team that spent everything they could to try to win. And at a certain point, they're going to have to throw their hands up in the air and say, well, Dodgers just keep on spending, and they're going to keep on spending. They're obviously the cream of the crop in the division. But wait, that's not just the only team in there. The Giants have a lot of money that they're going to go out there and spend this offseason. They've already done it the last 2 years. They have a really nice rotation. They look like they're the next team, like the Padres, that's at least going to try to push the Dodgers for the position, or for the division. As far as the Arizona Diamondbacks, they're kind of going the young route. I don't necessarily view them as a contender in that division either. Then, of course, the Rockies are not going to be good for, a decade more, it seems like, at this point. They aren't a factor at this point either. But if you're the Padres right now, you don't necessarily want to bail on guys like Tatis and Merrill, but it might be time to reload a little bit here. The idea of them trading a Mason Miller and getting back a couple of young starting pitchers from the New York Mets makes a lot of sense to me. But if the division with the has kind of passed them by, like Ken Rosenthal was saying on Foul Territory, it just kind of makes sense for them to kind of address their payroll issues by finding creative ways to improve this roster, by taking back controllable starting pitching in the deal for a Mason Miller. That would be kind of step one, would make some sense here. If you can find a taker to take on that contract of Bogarts, if you have to eat, I don't know, 50 to 60 million of that or more, might make it worth it. Machado's contract is underwater, but he still is seen as a good player. I'm sure some teams out there, the Yankees, others that could use an impact bat, would certainly be happy to have his bat on that roster, on their roster. The question, of course, would be the money. I'm not just saying the Yankees, by the way, but any team that could use an impact bat. Third base, shortstop, second base, DH. Machado, I think, could do any one of those positions. But my point is, he's got so much money tied up in him that the Padres are kind of stuck where they're at financially. They don't really have the money to go out there and add a Framber Valdez. They don't have the money to bring back a Michael King. They just don't. They're still looking to trim payroll. And when you're in that situation, you're kind of stuck, and it might be time for them to address their situation. And like A.J. Preller has done in years past, get creative and find different ways to try to win and still try to stay competitive in that division when you don't have the money to spend. All right, let's try to catch up on a few of these comments here, and then we'll kind of go through the rest of the news items. That's about a third of them. Like I said, it's been a very newsy day around Major League Baseball. All right, let's see here. The Nats can compete. It's just up to them on what they want to do, or if they want to go, if they want to tank, then tank. If they want to win, then win. I agree with you there, Heel. I do think they're kind of done with the tanking thing. I do think there's a world in which they trade away C.J. Abrams and still try to win this year by bringing in people through free agency. One other small deal we did see was Josh Bell, one-year deal, $7 million to the Minnesota Twins. A little bit surprised that they spent that money on a player like that. That's way more money than I thought he was getting. Even off of a nice year with the Nationals last year, I did not expect him to get $7 million. And especially from a team like the Twins, who was cash-strapped. Maybe this is a sign that the Twins might actually hold on to their trade assets. Something to kind of consider there. Ethan, I would be pumped if the Rangers signed Gallen 4 for 100, but if he signs, but you say he signs with the Cubs, that's kind of where I projected as well. But I wouldn't mind a Zach Gallen 4 for 80, 4 for 100 at this point. The starting pitcher market is kind of thin on the free agent side of things. If you're looking for an elite top-end guy, Framber Valdez probably number 1. Zach Gallen probably number 5-ish, 4-ish on that list. Michael King is in that range as well. But, hold on, something just popped up on my phone. Oh, sorry. All right, let's see here. But as far as Gallen, I still think he's going to get a very good deal. Boston or Orioles seems like a perfect fit. For Gallen, I think he'd be a good option in either place. Orioles, if they don't get Michael King, I think Zach Gallen has to be a get for them. Basically, you'd be subbing out Corbin Burns last year and the money he signed with the Arizona Diamondbacks for Zach Gallen. I would prefer the contract Zach Gallen is on, even though I think Burns is a better pitcher. Obviously, injury and more money. Diamondbacks, I think, would have overpaid in that situation, and I'd rather have, if I'm the Orioles, a team that doesn't have a whole lot of money and just spent a bunch of it on a first base DH guy, which rarely ever works out long term. Going after and getting a Zach Gallen, I think, would be a stroke of genius for them. Now, if they're able to swing both, Zach Gallen and Michael King, that would be a great offseason if you're an Orioles fan. Not only do you address the offense, which was your calling card for a while there. Last year, obviously down. Second half, it performed a little bit better. You addressed it by bringing in Pete Alonso. Now you've addressed your starting pitching by adding 2 long-term contracts. That would be something we had been asking the Orioles front office for all offseason last year, and they finally get it done this year. That would be a great sign if they were able to do it. We shall see. Bo Bichette to the Tigers would be a good fit. Maybe. I still think he's going to try to take the biggest dollar he can. To me, that still screams the Nationals. He's a player without necessarily a position or a specific team that wants him. I thought the Braves might kick the tires on him as a second base, third base option. And if they didn't like anything on the shortstop side of things, maybe they'd think about him as their own shortstop. Obviously, they have Riley there. They have Albies there. There's rumors that they could trade Albies at the deadline last year. I wouldn't be surprised if we heard in January, February that they revisit some of that talk. Riley, I thought, could have gone last year if they were able to get starting pitching back in return. Bichette would have been a nice option if they did trade one of those guys to be able to fill in at that spot or at shortstop, even though he's seen as a liability there defensively at this point. Braves due to several different reports out there, said that they do not view him as a shortstop and thus have signed Ha-Seong Kim for a 1-year, $20 million deal. But as far as Tigers and Bichette, best I can give you is maybe. To me, it just screams the Nationals all over that one. Jose, some people here in Philly are panicking over Garcia's last 2 seasons. I wouldn't worry about it at all if I'm Philadelphia. I would just look at Nick Castellanos and say, hey, there's the player that's leaving. This is the player we're replacing him. Obviously, Garcia is already a better player defensively day one when he comes in for the Philadelphia Phillies. You also have to remember he has a higher ceiling as far as an impact bat in a postseason run than Nick Castellanos has been. Castellanos had a great run after the trade deadline a couple of years. Well, I'd say a couple of years. It's now been like 5-6 years now since he was with the Cubs and Diamondbacks when he had that great run. But now it's time for him to move on to greener pastures here. Nick Castellanos' run with Philadelphia Phillies was never going to end well, especially after how things ended this past season and the year before, really. And it's just time for them to move on. And Garcia is just the perfect fit here. He's going to be a great fit in that clubhouse. And I think he's finally got a premium hitting coach that's going to be able to address some of the issues that he does have with pitch selection, swing decisions, those kinds of things. Those are really where his issues really lie. The power bat is still there. Injuries really derailed his 24 season. I think he's going to be just fine in Philadelphia, and he can hide in that lineup until he gets right. Tracy, welcome back. Could the Yankees acquire Mason Miller for Luis Gil, Jason Dominguez, and Dylan Lewis? That's not a bad package there. I would be interested if I'm the Padres, but is that enough starting pitching? Dominguez is a nice piece, but would I rather have more starting pitching than just Luis Gil, really? I mean, the injury to Luis Gil would be also a concern for me, but again, you're trading a closer. How choosy can you be? Again, he's got 4 years of control. He's still one of the better closers in the game. Probably in the top 2 or 3 if I had to put my money on a closer. He would be in that group there. Edwin Diaz, I think, would be in that group as well. But I would probably go with a package from the Mets. I would also, if there's a package from another team that had, like the Rays were offering for Marte, like Baz and Pipio, I would probably prefer that deal as well over what the Yankees would offer in that trade. The Yankees have the prospects to do it. I know we were talking, was it Saturday night or Friday or Saturday night, about LaGrange and Elmer as well. And I just think if you're going to make that type of a deal, I think you'd have to include Luis Gil and probably 1 or 2 more starting pitcher prospects. Dominguez might be nice for them in their outfield mix and kind of help solve their issues in the lineup. But I think they're looking for multiple controllable starters in return for Mason Miller, not necessarily just one they can hope on right now. Sarah, welcome back. Appreciate you joining us. Chris, welcome in. Hey, Michael, I want the Donovan deal done with the Cardinals. I love him. It sucks we are trading them. Well, according to several reports today, they're going to trade not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 veterans off of that roster. Romero, Contreras, Arenado, and Donovan are all expected to be traded, according to Ken Rosenthal. He would put it at 100% all 4 are gone by spring training. Now, Arenado, of course, they're going to have to eat some money there. I think that deal is eventually going to get done. It's just a matter of him finally agreeing to waive his no trade and being a big boy and sucking it up and just taking whatever deal comes the Cardinals' way at this point. Contreras, that one I have a little bit more reservation on because I'm not sure what team would be going after him. The market for first baseman is a little bit thin as far as on the free agent side of things. Trade route, you got the Christian Walkers of the world, the Contrerases of the world now, Yandy Diaz, of course. There are some options there. I do have my doubts about whether or not a deal truly gets done with Contreras. Romero in the bullpen, and then, of course, Brendan Donovan. It sounds like the Mariners and Giants probably get this deal done before Christmas, so I don't think you're going to have to wait long there, Sarah. Ian Happ, wave to go to Kansas City. I think it'd be a good fit there. Kansas City is looking for outfielders. We talked at the beginning of the video about their interest in Jarren Duran, but they'd have to give up Cole Ragans in that deal. In a trade with the Cubs, you're not going to have to give up Cole Ragans in that type of a deal. You're probably going to have to give up 2 decent starting pitching prospects or maybe a piece in the bullpen. Goes back to Chicago in that deal. I don't think they're going to trade anybody off the Major League roster. This one move here by the Cubs would free up some time in the outfield for some of the young guys that are getting close to being ready for the Major League level. I don't think they're ready to necessarily, throw the towel in on next season, but I think they've got enough faith in the young guys that they're bringing up that they'll be able to handle the Major League side of things and still be competent at the Major League level next year. Do I think they'll win 100 games? No. But I think with those young guys in there, and if they bring in a couple of starting pitchers, this could be a 85, 90 win team, even with the young guys there. And I think freeing up some playing time from Ian Happ getting traded and getting some prospects back in the system might be the best way to get those young guys the at bats that they need at the major league level. Travis, really thinking the Cubs need to bring Brad Keller back and let him try to be a starter. 3 years with some opt outs and at very least a good bullpen arm. I don't mind that idea at all. I think that would kind of fit the mold of what the Cubs need in that bullpen, but I need a proven option in that rotation. If Keller ends up earning a job out of out of the spring training in in the rotation as number 5, so be it. But I need two long-term starting pitchers in that rotation, like a Gallen, King. There's a lot of pitchers that could fit that, via the trade market as well. I know they were in there for Mackenzie Gore. If the Nationals add somebody this offseason like I expect them to, I don't think Gore moves. But maybe a Cabrera from the Marlins could be a guy that they go after in the trade market. Somebody with some control here, I think would be the best way the Cubs could go on the cheap here in the rotation. But to me, I still think they could also go the one-year option, the Molly guys who have injury risk but have the potential to be a number 2, 1-type starter. Justin Verlander in his Swan Song year, maybe. All those could be nice options for the Cubs. But I would rather have some proven options in that rotation before I start trying to convert guys back into being starters, a la Ronaldo Lopez, Jordan Hicks from other teams. They tried, what was the kid that went from the Yankees to the Blue Jays? Or was it the Phillies to the Blue Jays? Was it Hampton? Trying to remember the guy they signed last year. Anyway, I just would rather have proven options if I'm the Cubs. John, welcome in. Eric, by God, welcome in. I like that name, by the way. John, is Cashman done dealing yet? He hasn't done. It hasn't even started yet. Honestly, he brought in Ahmed Rosario, 1-year deal, brought him back to platoon over there at third base. Lots of questions though about the Yankees. What are they going to do? Where are they going to spend? Hal Steinbrenner wringing his hands, saying they're not as profitable as you think. And while they might not be as profitable as say the Dodgers, they still make a heck of a lot of money. The Yes Network, apparel sales, Yankees experience packages, ticket sales, all those kinds of things, and then of course revenue sharing comes into play along the lines. But I think the Yankees, for them to cry poor, I think is a little bit disingenuous. Yes, we understand. No team is making money the way the Dodgers are making money right now, hand over fist. They're outspending everybody, and yet they're out earning everybody as well, just because they have Shohei Ohtani. Not to mention Yamamoto and Betts and Freeman, and down the list you go. They have done so well, both on the business side and on baseball side of things. They are crushing it. As far as the Yankees go, I think they need to take a page from that Dodgers playbook and just say the heck with it. You're going to have to, you're going to have to spend money to make money. At a certain point, it's time to invest in this ball club, and they have a very good team. Garrett Cole's coming back. They should have a good rotation. They're going to try to finish off that rotation with one more piece, but they still need to solve first base. I think they still need to add 2 bats to that lineup. One of them could be a Bellinger coming back. Murakami could be in that conversation. Tucker could be in that conversation, but they need 2 bats. Ahmed Rosario does not count as an impact bat to me, but we'll see what Cashman decides to do. Any Cubs rumors? Not too much today. There was one of the few teams that I did not see any newsy items from them. I'm trying to remember. Did they just make that small prospect trade? No, that was the Red Sox and Nationals swapping pitching prospects. Nothing of consequence anyway, but not too much newsy items on the Cubs today. I think they're kind of in the waiting, kind of in the holding pattern anyway. Bregman starting pitching, I think they're waiting for the dam to break. I do not think they'll be the ones to break it, and then they'll try to get a deal based off of what that first deal ultimately comes in at. By God, do the Rangers regret Jock Peterson's contract? Absolutely, they regretted that deal at the end of April. They certainly would love to move off of that deal if they could get somebody to even eat a couple million, $5 million of that deal. I think they would be happy to jettison that deal from them. If they could eat, say, he's making 18, something like that, 20, I think he's making 18 or 21 million. I can't remember how much specifically. But if they could get another team to eat, 3 to 5 million of that deal, he would be gone right now. I think he's going to be on the opening day roster as currently set. He had a better second half, which it's not hard when you're hitting, 0.52 or something at some point in the first half last year. But I think he's going to be on the roster opening day for the Rangers unless they get somebody to eat just a couple $1 million of that deal. Let's see here. Yankees and Padres. They could make a nice trade here. The options that they have, Pivetta could be a nice option for a starter. Mason Miller as a closer option. They need to kind of finish off that bullpen for me. Luke Weaver could be gone in free agency, so They already lost Devin Williams. Bednar's still really good at the back end of that bullpen. Doval had his up and down moments for that bullpen as well, but they need more work. They need to get some work done back there as well. Andrew, what is taking so long for JT to sign? Is he really thinking about leaving Philadelphia? No, I just think he's holding out for Philadelphia to finally pony up the money here. And I think they will. Dombrowski is not necessarily shy about giving money to veterans he thinks will help improve their chances of winning a World Series. If he doesn't think you're going to help win a World Series, he's basically going to slam the door in your face and move on. And I think JT Realmuto still knows his value with that Phillies organization, and I think he's correct to hold out for the right number. He will get it. It's just a matter of time. I don't think there's another team that's going to sign him away. But I think Realmuto's the best option on the catching side of things right now, and I just think it's a matter of time until he gets that deal ultimately finished. Let's see here. Ethan, if the Rangers spend big money, who do you expect it to be? Starting pitching. Gallen makes some sense. Valdez have been a lot of Rangers fans talking about him. I don't think they're going to go that high in free agency. I think Valdez got a rude awakening after Dylan Cease's deal 7 for 210 was done. He thought maybe I could get something like that. Basically, the rest of the market has already told him and anybody else looking to get that kind of money on the starting pitching side, hell no. Not just no, but hell no. According to several different media outlets, that the prices have certainly come down from the level of Dylan Cease that he got earlier in free agency from the Blue Jays. That contract is not out there for any of the other arms that are left. So he's going to have to settle for the 150 or something along those lines that we expected earlier this offseason. And I think he's coming to grips that he's not going to get $200 million. I think it's just going to take a little bit more time here. And, we'll see where he goes. But to me, the Mets have to be the team that gets it, right? I mean, they need an ace. He is the ace on the market. Other teams are going to be in there. They have Cohen as the owner. Just outbid it. Get it done. You need several starters this offseason. Let's stop hemming and hawing about this thing and letting that price get even higher on Cohen. Throw a Godfather offer out there. Say, hey, we'll give you 5 years, 160, and just be done with it. I think that could get the deal done. But to me, it just seems like it's going to take a little bit more time. But for big money, I would expect starting pitcher, $20-ish million, and then try to add one more bat. Right-handed hitting outfielder, second base, first base option is something they've been said to be targeting. But to me, they'd have to offload some money here or just eat the money on Jock Peterson's deal. We'll see if they decide to do that. And I'm not convinced that they're sold over that third base with Young. If they can find a trade to their liking, I think they would like to improve at third base or in free agency as well. Will there be any trades between tonight and tomorrow? And what are you hearing about Ranger Suarez? Still hearing the Phillies to a certain extent. I've heard a little bit about the Cubs. I've heard before Dylan Cease signed in Toronto, I heard they had interest. That interest is now cooled completely. But I would expect somewhere up north. I don't expect too many of the southern teams to have too much interest here. I did hear the Rangers in on Ranger Suarez briefly, but maybe they're one of, they do like to act quietly and, move in silence. So maybe they're the team that ultimately gets him. But I think he's more likely going to sign with one of those teams in the Northeast. I think we're talking Baltimore, if they miss on Michael King, could circle to him, or Zach Gallen. The Mets obviously need some starting pitching here. I still think he should end up back in Philadelphia, but we'll see where this thing ultimately goes. Welcome in, Lucas. Appreciate you joining us one more time. A lot of people in our chat right now. Be sure to say hello. Let's try to jump through some of these comments here. Wow, there we go. Okay. Knowledge, welcome back. Rifki, welcome in. Cubs are going to play the market. I can give you names, though. They're offering higher one-year deals to relief pitchers right now. I think the Kenley Jansen deal kind of helped spur some of the relief market along here. I do think we'll get some relievers coming off the board here fairly quickly. So I do agree with you there. Cubs, to me, though, still seem like a team that's going to end up signing starting pitching on the cheap, whether that be 1 year, 2 year deals, or if they try to go after a controllable guy, in January, February, and try to take advantage of a market that may not have developed for a starting pitcher. But the Cubs, I think, could be a team that tries to wait on this thing. The one player I think they'll have a blank check for, as blank as it can be in the Cubs situation, is Alex Bregman. I still think they have their limits there as far as how much they can give average annual value. But I think he's the player that they really want to bring in, period, whether it be starting or pitching. Remember last year, even though I kept talking about how much they needed starting pitching, sure, Kyle Tucker helps you on the offensive side of things, but you're giving up two long-term pieces in Paredes and Smith. Doesn't work for you long-term, and this is not a go all-in type of a year. They chose to go all-in last year. That was their decision because the contracts in that front office were coming up, that they were drawing the ire of the Ricketts and family and so forth, that they wanted to try to show that they were committed to winning. Obviously, it didn't work. as we now can see. But they were able to save their jobs for now. Yet again, pitching still remains a priority. Steele went down due to injury last year. I like the signing of Boyd. It worked out pretty well. Didn't like it originally, but looking back, that deal worked out pretty well for them. But they need to get some long-term answers in that rotation. Jameson Taillon, does he start their year with them? Does he even begin the year with the Cubs organization? Those are some question marks around the Cubs as well. Breaking just in, Lindor, David Peterson, and Senga headed to San Diego for Tatis, Miller, and some cash. Really? Let me double check on X just to see if that is something that is happening. Let me pull up my screen for you guys. I do not see anything crazy like that. Let me head over to MLB Trade Rumors and just to double check. No. Nice try though, Rifke. Appreciate you. Let's see here. Ethan, DeGrom for Mason Miller and Manny Machado mock trade, please. I can do that one for you really quick, just to kind of show you what it would look like. Would I do that type of a trade if I'm Texas? That's a lot of money for Machado long term. Okay, let's go ahead and just do it real quick, just to see what it looks like. Padres and Rangers. Would they want DeGrom would be my question. It'd be getting out of some long-term money for Manny Machado, obviously, and you're giving up all the value in Mason Miller to make this deal work with Machado anyway. This would be a bad use of assets if I'm the Padres. DeGrom's value currently negative 13. I mean, yikes. And you'd probably have to include money in this deal to make the Rangers say yes to this. I mean, no. Just no. I mean, DeGrom is a really good starting pitcher. Padres need starting pitching. I could see a starting point of Machado and DeGrom as the money pieces, but I don't see any reason to include Miller in this deal as a positive asset here. I would just include just dollar amount to get off of the contract of Machado if you were that serious about offloading the long-term money committed to Manny Machado. Now, say you did something like, I don't know, you take out Machado, or you take out Miller here, and say the Padres throw in, I don't know, $60 million over the life of the Machado deal to the Rangers. Basically, for the first 2 years, Machado could be a free player for you. How much is he owed left anyway? Like $300 million? 8 years at $300 million, that's what, $35 million a year, something like that. So that basically would be 2 years you pay for the first 2 years, and then the last 6 years he's free, or you pay the full boat on him, and you're giving up on DeGrom as well. Then you still have to replace not one starting pitcher in your rotation, but two. I still would probably say no to that one if I'm Texas. If I'm the Padres, I get out of the money on Machado. It hurts to lose Machado, but, I mean, even with the money committed here, it still doesn't equal up here. Interesting idea. I'll give you that. But to me, if I'm the Padres, I'm not including both of those assets into that deal. No matter what you think about Machado being a quote-unquote asset anyway. All right, Cubs' number one target is starting pitcher Imai from Japan. I think he could be the guy for them. Padres, Giants, Mets, Yankees, Phillies to a certain extent. He's going to do very well. Andrew, I heard the Phillies are still interested in Luis Robert in a trade. We did talk about that one on Saturday. Phillies do have interest. There's 3 different teams that still have been kicking the tires on it. Mets and Padres had at least kicked the tires on Luis Robert as well. Still want to bring Bader back. I think he'd be a good option for them in center, that's for sure. He was a really good platoon guy last year, both Minnesota and Philadelphia. Is he the guy ready to take the ball, or ready to play 140, 150 games in that outfield? I have my doubts. But according to projections, he's going to get a 2-year, $20 million contract. That's a contract for an everyday player, or at least a guy who's going to play 120, 130 games for you. And if you're going the young route, Bader would be a really good guy for him to learn out there in center from. He's a really good defender. Bader can also play in all 3 outfield positions, as he showed last year in Minnesota. Could be a nice way to improve that outfield there. Let's see here. Cubs would push the market up and go after Michael King or Zach Gallen. Um, King is going to go to one of the Northeast teams. Red Sox, Yankees, Orioles are the finalists. They're out. As far as Zach Gallen, I think that would be the next guy after Michael King goes in free agency. I think that would be the next guy in line for a contract. If you're kind of thinking about if option one is off the board, then option two. If option two is off the board, then option three. I think King and then Gallen is kind of how it works for that tier of pitcher, but we'll see how things go. Of course, Valdez is above all of those guys right now. Let's see here. Lee Thomaston, welcome in. After last season, it's just good to see the Braves do something. True, the Braves were very quiet last season. They did add, what, 3 or 4 names already this offseason? Suarez, Yastrzemski. They brought back Iglesias. Now they bring in Kim. They've been fairly active, and they still got money to spend. They're looking for starting pitching still, and I expect them to add the starting pitcher that they want. I do like the addition of Kim as their shortstop, at least in the short term. The best part of that about that deal is that it's a 1-year deal, and they can give a qualifying offer now if he has a great platform year, that where they could at least get some compensation back. I think that they did want to check the market on guys like Corey Seager and C.J. Abrams and Bo Bichette, and just at least kick the tires and just kind of test drive a few guys. And ultimately, I don't think the offers that they would have, or the names that they would have even thrown at the Rangers were overly interesting to Texas. Texas didn't want to move on from Corey Seager, but if we get to next year, Corey Seager does have the Braves on his no-trade list. So he'd have to waive his no trade to go there. I think that's going to be an impediment there as well. But I do think the Braves are going to try to improve via the trade market next year at that shortstop spot. We'll see who they go after. C.J. Abrams, it sounds like, was not necessarily to their cup of tea, or was not necessarily to their liking, and the price was too high. And so they decided to move elsewhere and decided to just bring back their own guy. Remember, last year they made a nice little trade for him, a nice $2 million gamble, and it worked out. And now they got their shortstop for at least one season. Long-term answer to be determined. All right, knowledge. Cubs are in on 3 third basemen: Murakami, Bregman, and Suarez. Cubs will play the market, push money up, then sign the cheapest of the 3. I do like the way you kind of put that in your messages there, but I do agree that Bregman is their number one option. They would really prefer to get him. They may have to settle for an Okamoto or a Murakami. But Suarez, to me, is the guy I think they ultimately end up with. Did hear some interesting options, possibly the Pittsburgh Pirates being a nice fit for Suarez as well. But we'll have to see where they ultimately go. Michael King is your favorite option. I do like Michael King. I just think people value him just a little too high. Not that he isn't a good pitcher, that he isn't a number 2 or a high-end number 3. I just don't view him as a number 1. It's a consistent number 1. I think he's got to do a little bit more for me to consider him in that class. But he certainly has pitched very well over the last few years, and I think he could be a really nice option for teams that are short on starting pitching, no matter where they utilize him in the rotation. So Mets, Orioles, teams that desperately needed starters last year should really be trying to get any and all starting pitching, high-end starters preferably, and Michael King would certainly be in that class of the high-end starters that are available this year. One more name to watch is Bellinger back to the Cubs. I doubt it, but wouldn't be surprising. I don't think they could do a 3-year deal. I think he's looking for a longer-term deal. He really fits to a T what the Rangers are looking for, and they have $30 to $40 million to spend. If they add a guy like Zach Gallen, say 4 years, 85, 4 years, $90 million, 4 for 100, that still leaves enough money to where they could add another big-time contract. And I would not be surprised if they went to Ray Davis and said, "Hey, we have the opportunity to really improve our roster once again. Would you allow us to go over the tax?" He showed the willingness last year with all the hand-wringing. They still went over the tax just barely. We'll see if they do that once again this season. Bellinger could be the case that you make to Ray Davis to make that move. But as far as the Cubs, I don't think he's going to go back to Chicago. Not necessarily because that he didn't like Chicago. I just think the Chicago Cubs are not going to be able to afford a Bellinger, especially when the New York teams are in, the Nationals are going to be in, to a certain extent the Blue Jays are going to be in if they don't land Tucker. I think that the Giants are also going to be in that discussion as well. They could use a first base, outfield option as well. Then they have the option to trade on Bryce Eldridge and see if they could recoup some value there, help out their rotation. Lots of different ways these teams could move. And for him to get a 3-year deal, that would mean his market would have to dry up, and I just don't see that happening. Let's see here. I also can't see teams calling on Ian Happ and the Cubs not listening. I do think he will likely go. I think he's going to be in that Byron Buxton camp. Buxton teams will call on first, and then we'll circle down to Ian Happ. Let's see here. No trade clause with Philly, New York can extend him. True. Ethan, Jock for Nick Castellanos and the Rangers sign Arise. Love it. No, thank you. I would rather have the 1 year deal of Jock Peterson than bring in Nick Castellanos. Castellanos would just be exchanging one bad deal for another, and I just don't have any interest in that. Now, as far as signing Arise, I would love that. You guys know I'm originally from South Dakota, so grew up a Twins fan when I was very very young. Moved down to Texas when I was 8 or 9. Became a Rangers fan ever since. Braves, of course, when they were on TBS, put them back on TBS. They were the national team, honestly, at that time. I would love that as well. But I would love for the Braves to be back on national TV on TBS. That'd be great. But as far as Castellanos switching for Jock, no thanks. And as far as Arise, he played for one of my favorite teams, a few years ago in the Minnesota Twins. He played for Skip Schumacher a couple years ago in Miami, and he still looks like the same player to me that he was in Minnesota. Doesn't necessarily walk as much, strikes out a little bit more, but he's still a very high on base percentage guy, contact guy, and that's really what the Rangers are targeting, changing their offensive philosophy. We'll see if they do something along those lines. Announced Ketel Marte to Texas. He does kill the Rangers, that's for dang sure. I would love to see him in a Rangers uniform just so I can see him stop hitting home runs, late game home runs that just screwed the Rangers multiple times last year. Cubs would like to add exactly 2 decent young upside starting pitchers. I think they would love to do that. I don't think they have the money to do so in free agency. I don't think they have the trade assets to do so via trade unless they're willing to move for a Cabrera or they're willing to make a move for a couple of the guys from the Mets. But what would they give the Mets? They don't really have anything that would really work out for the Mets in that trade. So they're going to have to go to free agency. They're going to have to sign short-term contracts like they have in years past. Best case scenario, if you're a Cubs fan looking for starting pitching, you could hope for Framber Valdez. Ain't going to happen. You could hope for Michael King. He's already down to 3 finalists. You could hope for Zach Gallen or pitchers along those lines. But ultimately, you're probably going to end up with guys like Justin Verlander, guys like Tyler Mahle. Those are the names I would watch for the Chicago Cubs. Would you do Arenado for Alec Bohm? The only reason I say that is because I don't think Miller will be ready to come up yet. I would agree there. I do think, as far as Arenado coming in, I think he'd be a nice upgrade over there at third base. Whether you believe he is or not, to me, I think the veteran leadership factor that I don't necessarily think the Phillies need the leadership, but I just think the veteran nature, the presence that he brings would certainly be invaluable, and I think he'd be reinvigorated playing in a competitive environment. Cardinals haven't been competitive for a year and a half now, and I think that's the main reason why he wanted to be traded. I think Philadelphia would be a great spot for him. I think the trade would probably have to be tweaked a little bit there. Maybe reroute Bohm somewhere else and give longer-term assets to the Cardinals, but I could be convinced of an Arenado trade to the Philadelphia Phillies. Now, as far as whether it makes sense for them to do so and give up Bohm, there's going to be some that prefer Bohm. There's going to be some that prefer Arenado. I guess it would just be up to Dombrowski which player he prefers in that lineup. Since he is the GM there. Knowledge. If Justin Turner is back, Cubs will continue to grow. I think he's the guy coaching players up last year. I saw it every day. We need to offer him a job on the staff. I think he's a great clubhouse presence. Reminds me a lot of the Johnny Gomes back in the day or Mike Napoli. I think those players were invaluable in the clubhouse. And players like that do turn into good managers over the years. We've seen it time and time again. Good communicators ultimately make out to be the best managers. So if he decides that he wants to be a manager down the line, he very well could have his opportunities. That's why you see catchers usually get a good opportunity at those managerial jobs because they have to have those communication skills behind the plate with their pitcher, with their infield, set the defense, those kinds of things. If your team needs a manager, has a bad locker room, Justin Turner is going to be a genius manager. I would kind of agree there. I think he's been very, very good. Trying to jump through some of these other news and notes here. Padres had one good hitter for in the playoffs, almost lost an arm, but spin on the bat like that. Scott Boras, I would guess, caused this. Let's see here. What kind of value is Justin Turner worth? Couple million, I guess. Just a couple. Ranger Suarez, in my opinion, is likely the next deal that goes. Possibly. He kind of fits, to me, that veteran pitcher that we're starting to see come off the market here. I do think Michael King is the next one to go, if I had to guess. Imai, I think, is going to happen within the next next week or so. I did have a note on Murakami. He has until, I believe, the 22nd to sign a deal here. Yes, Murakami has until 5 p.m. on the 22nd, so he will have his deal before Christmas. And the news and notes on him are all about the strikeouts. That teams have been questioning him more on it than he expected, and so that might be what's driving down his market right now. Boston is a very good match for the Padres if they start making moves. Padres front office, Cubs, Red Sox, all very close. Came up together. True, absolutely agree with that one. So I mean, at their options, I don't think the Cubs sign Valdez, but they will push for price up. I could see that, but I don't think they're necessarily the team that's pushing the price up. I think the teams that push the price up on Valdez are going to be the bigger market teams. We're talking, well, I say bigger market, teams that are willing to pay a higher price for that starting pitcher. I don't think they necessarily need the Cubs to do that for them. So the Mets, if the Astros decide to bring him back, I think they could be up there until $30 million. Once they hit $30 million a year over 5 years, they're out. But I do think that the Mets are probably the most likely landing spot. I think the Orioles are legitimately in there. They do have interest, but I think they're more likely looking to bring in Michael King. If they get Michael King, I think they could get very, very aggressive on Zach Gallen. So don't be surprised on either of those two being connected to the Orioles. What is Ranger Suarez looking at? 3 for 90, 4 for 120? I would guess probably 3 for 100, honestly. If he goes for 4 years, probably 4 for 130. Somewhere in there. Playoffs versus Cubs. Tatis hit 0.83 and it was ugly. How much does he make? I don't know. I think he's still in the early stages of his extension, so I don't think it's fully kicked in all the way to where he's making that max money yet. But Tatis is still a young player, was getting some of his first tastes of the postseason. They've been in the postseason 4 out of the last 6 years. Tatis has been in there twice now, so he's going to have to take over, that leadership role on that team, which you would not have thought a couple of years ago based off of where his career was headed and the knuckleheaded things he was doing. But he's going to have to turn into be one of those veterans that, Manny Machado is on that team, the Xander Bogaerts is of that team. He's going to have to join that leadership group and see if he can really develop as a leader on that in that clubhouse. Because Bogaerts, he might be able to do it, but his performance on the field doesn't necessarily dictate the respect of the younger players. Tatis still is going to have that sway with them. He's going to have to demonstrate it a little bit more, I think, than in years past. 6 for 150 for Ranger. I don't think it gets quite that high. I think we're looking 5 years max for Suarez, but if I had to guess, more likely 4. Bogaerts, Fermin, Merrill, all are very good for the Padres in the playoffs. So, guys, you keep absolutely. But I do think the Padres are going to be open for business in that bullpen. They have a lot of depth back there. I think Mason Miller could very well be headed to the Mets, and a couple of young starters end up going back to the Padres or in the next couple of weeks here. Welcome in, Itai. Been a minute since I've seen you in here. Appreciate you joining us once again. Been doing pretty well. Hadn't really done a video since middle of August, and we started up right before the winter meetings, and basically have gone ever since. We're going to go all the way through the rest of the off season, like we did last year, around 9 o'clock Eastern time, 9 o'clock Central, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We're going to try to shoot for a little bit later of a start. Those are my late days usually at work, and so I'll try to start a little bit later for our international audience as well. I hear you just keep seeing the Cubs are in on Bellinger. I think that's just more I think his fondness for playing with them is being misinterpreted as a interest in going there. I think Bellinger would love to go there if they were giving him the money. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think the Cubs are going to pay the piper on that one. Michael Tauchman would be a nice option. I do like that name as well. He played very well last year for the White Sox. Itai, you think Skubal to the Dodgers has life? And do you think it'll happen? Does it have life at this point? No. Did it have life? Yes. There was a legitimate conversation between the two ball clubs. There was some conversation to be had about Glasnow possibly being traded. Glasnow has since been told, buddy, you're staying. Those talks did not go anywhere. We're keeping you. You're good. Skubal is not going to be traded to the Dodgers. Now, could they revisit this in January or February? Absolutely. I think there is a decent value proposition to be had between the two ball clubs. Do you want 1 year of Skubal or 18 years of control of 3 top-end prospects? That would be a very interesting situation. But for me, the Tigers have the money to be able to extend a Skubal right now. Skubal is probably going to test himself in free agency, though. And I think the Tigers at that point are going to have to pony up here and be able to retain him. They have the money to do it. We'll see if they have the backbone to be able to get the deal done. Travis, this time of year we were talking about Anthony Santander. What's up with him? And do the Jays move him if they sign Tucker? They ain't going to move him. To me, that would be just another cog in their engine, if you will. I think that Santander is still a good hitter in this league. He was kind of the stabilizing force of their offseason acquisitions last year. all the question marks around Vladdy Guerrero Jr., would they be able to retain him at this time last year as well? They got that deal done in April after the season had started, and were able to solidify their team. Now they can go out there and add this offseason. That's why they were able to get a couple of deals done. Dylan Cease, Ponce. They also brought in the reliever, Rogers. I think they're still going to add a big bat here. Could possibly be Kyle Tucker. But do they move a Santander if they bring in Tucker? No. I think they have the money to be able to afford it. They do have the Rogers TV money there from Canada, so they're doing just fine. Do you look great? Been tuning in for a while. You look like a new man. Keep it up. Thank you. I do have a hoodie on. It's pretty dang cold. I'll put it this way. I'm absolutely terrified of what my gas bill is going to be in the next month or two with the way I don't like to get political on this channel at all. I do have obvious opinions just like everybody else, but I don't want this channel to be that. And to me, the best way I can help my budget, which by gosh, it could certainly use it. Every penny helps, but I'm not looking to spend money on, heating and so forth when I can just bundle up and put more clothes on, throw an extra couple of blankets on my bed at night, cut my heat off at the, period. If it drops below 30 degrees, then I'll have to turn on the heat just so the pipes don't freeze. But other than that, I try to keep my heat off. And so, yeah, it's going to be an interesting winter. It's supposed to be one of the colder winters in the past, 10, 15 years. We'll see how that goes. Gas prices are, going to be the highest they've been in a very long time because we've never had to sell our LNG before, liquid natural gas, and we've had several different contracts that certain politicians have signed that are more than we've ever created as a country ever, that we've agreed to sell in multiple different deals with international or with different nations around the world, and yet that's more than we've ever produced for ourselves. It's been illegal to sell the LNG before, ever, outside of the United States. Companies were not allowed to sell LNG, and now we're more than doubling it with one deal. We're more than tripling it with another deal, and we haven't even started to feel that effect yet, and I'm just terrified of what that price is going to do. I just really don't want to pay it. So I'm doing everything I can to keep that money down. So, all right. Murakami is a Matt Olson comp. Is that fair? No, I think Matt Olson doesn't strike out nearly as much as Murakami is going to. I think he's got a lot of Joey Gallo in him. The question is, young Joey Gallo was able to make it work for him. He had a great run while he was with the Texas Rangers. Bad Joey Gallo is what we saw when he was with the Dodgers and Yankees, where strikeouts happen, he's not playing the way he should, plays out of position, those kinds of issues. I think there's a very real Joey Gallo comp to me. I haven't heard too many people connecting Joey Gallo and Murakami, but to me, he has a lot of that in him, and the strikeouts are a real concern from a lot of front offices out there. We will see. As far as connecting to the Rangers, again, Joey Gallo to me, the Rangers love Joey Gallo, and they made it work. They do have a need over there at third base if they're unhappy with Josh Young. They need power, but their issue is getting on base, avoiding the strikeout, working the walk, and that would kind of slap in the face of that. To me, the more likely guy of the international guys would be Okamoto. He kind of fits more what the Rangers are looking for as far as on base, kind of a more well-rounded player, and certainly a better glove as well, but we will see. All right, appreciate you guys joining us. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe. I told you guys it was a very active day in Major League Baseball. If you guys are just joining us, we got through about 15 different news items already, and we're going to kind of rip through the rest of these. It was a lot of different activity that we saw today on the rumor mill side of things, and we're going to try to get into this talk here. Murakami for the Phillies and then trade Bohm, possibly. Again, they were looking for a power bat in Adolis Garcia. They got that. To me, if they didn't bring in Adolis Garcia, I would say Murakami makes more sense. But with Adolis Garcia on that roster, I would rather have Murakami. I'd rather have Bohm over there at third base. Now, if you're telling me Okamoto or Bohm, I'd rather have Okamoto than Murakami or Bohm on that roster. Period. But again, then you'd have to move on Bohm and whole other kit and caboodle there. All right, let's get back into these topic stories here. I mentioned Murakami's deadline of the 5 p.m. on December 22nd. That market is going to move very quickly. Okamoto is right around that same time period as well, both of which I do expect to sign before Christmas. The Tigers, were they listening on Skubal? They were, and they still are listening on Tarek Skubal. But the industry does not expect him to be moved at this point. However, there is a starting pitcher I told you guys to kind of forget about it. It's not going to happen. There's not going to be a trade. Well, Ken Rosenthal is basically saying Freddie Peralta will be moved at this point now in the offseason. Several different trade talks are moving around Freddie Peralta. The talks are developing whenever you hear the word developing coming from a guy like Ken Rosenthal, that means there's real movement on a trade there for Freddie Peralta. And so I would expect him to be moved. I did not think they were going to do that. I thought they were going to try to, lean on their strength, which was their starting pitching last year. But it sounds like if they can get a nice starter in return, as far as a controllable starter, they might be willing to give up with their ace in Freddie Peralta. They have a couple of guys coming back that they're comfortable with, at least for one more season. But they need some long-term guys in that rotation. And that's what I think they're seeing here in a return for Freddie Peralta. They might be able to get the long-term starter they're looking for. So we'll see if it works out. But the Peralta talks are developing, and again, now seen as likely, according to Ken Rosenthal. Bo Bichette was getting offers at shortstop, even with his defensive deficiencies, I guess is the best way to put it. So to me, that would scream of the Washington Nationals just looking to bring in a big bat. That would scream of the, pretty much any of these teams that need a big bat, or at least an impact bat. And so to me, it just says the Nationals are going to get their player. Now, the reason why you trade away a C.J. Abrams is because you have another option coming. And I think Bo Bichette is going to be the guy that goes there. Now, I think they're going to try to get the deal done, sending C.J. Abrams somewhere else first. I think they were hoping to get the Braves to bite down on that one. Doesn't look like that's going to happen. But to me, this is just screaming the Nationals are going to be the team for Bo Bichette, especially if he wants to play shortstop. That might be one of the few places he can still play it, because of how many other teams are looking for a shortstop in this market. Braves were. They got their guy in Kim. There's not many other teams that are looking in the shortstop market at this point because there aren't that many good shortstops on the market to begin with. Next year, I think we could see a very different picture on that shortstop position. But for right now, Bichette's really the only one out there, and there ain't that many teams looking, so we'll see where he does decide to go. Cardinals fire sale is loading. So, Sarah, buckle up. We mentioned that there's 4 players that are expected to be traded, according to Rosenthal: Romero, Contreras, Arenado, and of course Donovan. I would expect them to have their ear to the ground on anything moving controllable starting pitching. That's really what this roster needs at this point. They need starting pitching. So I like the deal that they made with Sonny Gray already. They need to find a way to move on from Arenado at this point. It's time to end the relationship there. Contreras, if they can get somebody to take on the money there and give him something of value back, I think he should be traded as well. Will you get that type of return? That's the one I have some question marks about as well. And then, of course, Donovan is your premium asset that you can move. I think the Giants and Mariners rumors are correct. I do think one of those two teams ultimately does end up with Brendan Donovan. I do think Marte moves. I think Lowe moves, or Brendan Lau anyway, from the Tampa Bay Rays. A lot of activity for second baseman this year. So should be a very interesting trade market up until Christmas. I do think a lot of those deals will happen this week. Next item, the Reds are looking to move to make their improvements via free agency, not trade, after being involved in a lot of trade talk early at the winter meetings, according to several different insiders, that they have kind of cooled their jets on any of the trade talks that are out there, and they're looking to improve their team via free agency instead. So do not be surprised if you see some interesting teams like the Reds being involved in free agency you were not expecting them to be for. Twins, we mentioned them signing Josh Bell, 1 year, $7 million. Had a nice year with the Nationals. Did not expect him to parlay that into a $7 million and $7 million contract, and certainly not from the Minnesota Twins. A little bit surprising they're adding here. Tells me that might be a little bit more financial, or they might have a little bit more freedom financially than they did last year. I still think they're going to try to find a way to move on from those starting pitchers and from Byron Buxton, reset this thing completely. Either that or do it at the deadline, one of the two. But we shall see a very active team. I think we're going to see a very active team in Minnesota the rest of the way. Let's see here. Rangers. The budget is looking good for the Rangers right now. They're looking for one big addition, according to reports, and that addition is probably going to be on the starting pitching side. If they have money left over, then they'll address their offense at that point. But starter is where they're going to spend the money. Reports out there linked Zach Gallen. They've linked Framber Valdez. They've linked Michael King at one point this offseason. Trade route they could go as well with Cabrera. Mackenzie Gore was a starting pitcher they identified. Joe Ryan is kind of a DeGrom-esque type of pitcher they have interest in. If I'm going to guess where they're going to go, I would guess on the free agent market. The Zach Gallen stuff is starting to make a little bit more sense to me the more I think about it. On the trade block, I would say Edward Cabrera from the Marlins makes a lot of sense. They just signed another guy from the Miami Marlins from years past anyway, a minor league guy I think they just did as well, a relief pitcher. So Rangers are kind of utilizing the Skip Schumacher connection with his Miami Marlins tie-ins and bringing in a bunch of guys on minor league deals that he was able to find roles for on that team, and kind of gives Skip Schumacher options when he gets to spring training. All right. We talked a little bit about the Phillies bringing in Adolis Garcia, 1 year, $10 million. Nick Castellanos is out. Again, just kind of news and notes on that one to me. This is the perfect right-handed power-hitting bat that they can hide in the bottom of their lineup or sandwich in between at the top of the lineup when he's right. I think this is the perfect power hitter that they needed to replace Nick Castellanos. A+ here by bringing in Adolis Garcia. Absolutely stunned that he ends up in Philadelphia. Again, I thought he would end up on a small market team that's willing to give him all the playing time in the world. Not great situations for him, and just hope he's able to resurrect his career. Fingers crossed. Well, now when he goes to Philadelphia, he's going to get the help that he needs. I think he's going to be able to solve some of those swing decision issues. Strikeouts will come down. Power numbers will still stay about the same, maybe even go up a little bit. But I expect him to be a very good signing for them in Philadelphia. And his defense is something you're really going to enjoy if you're a Philadelphia Phillies fan. Welcome back. I'm not sure how to pronounce this. Kuramwanaku. 31-19. Since Kelly left to go back to Arizona, I think the Rangers need one more starter. I do think they will add one more starter. I'm wondering if they add 2 or 3. Probably minor league contracts, kind of like what they did with Adrian Hauser last year. Obviously, they wish they'd kept him before he moved on to the White Sox and then got traded at the deadline as well. I think they're looking in that kind of the unclaimed starter and pitcher bin, if you will, for minor league options. But I do think the Rangers will add a premium starter, kind of in that price tag range of what Merrill Kelly was. I think the contract that he signed with Arizona is probably something they had on the table for him to go back to Texas, maybe even at $25 million, but I think he just wanted to go back to Arizona, so he goes back to Arizona. Andrew, will the Phillies extend Luzardo? I think that's a good option for them. I think they probably will extend Luzardo. How much remains to be a question mark there. I understand money talks, but if Kuzomo is smart, he joins the Mariners and gets some tips from Ichiro because Ichiro still works for them. Yes, he does, and he still participates on the field as well. Ooh. What was this? Wow. Cooper Flagg just set a single-game NBA scoring record for 18-year-olds, 39 points and counting at Utah, surpassing LeBron James' 37 as an 18-year-old in 23. Flagg turns 19 on Saturday. That's pretty cool. Everybody was giving flack to Cooper Flagg and how he was struggling coming out of the gate, but I mean, he was asked to be a point guard. And I think there's reasons for that. We can do that in our Sunday broadcast when we do that one, when we talk other subjects. But nice night for him. Nice night. All right, let's finish off the rest of the headlines. The Braves added Hassan Kim, 1 year, $20 million. They're waiting on their long-term answer at shortstop. I don't think it's in their minor leagues right now. I do think they're going to try to go either the trade route or free agency after the lockout ends in 27. Now, I think they're hoping the Rangers would decide to save a little bit more money and try to offload Corey Seager. That didn't happen. I think they're hoping to get a deal on him. That didn't happen, obviously. And we'll see if they revisit those talks and see if Corey Seager is willing to waive his no trade to go there next offseason. More trade talks, more than ever before, according to Jim Bowden, at the winter meetings this year. I think that speaks very much about the CBA negotiations and what that means for us possibly heading towards a lockout. I think teams are looking to go save a little bit of money. Teams that have already spent a lot of money. I think teams that are on the lower end of the scale here are looking to pick up a few free agents and look a little bit better in their CBA negotiations with the Players Association or with the Players Union. But for me, the top end teams are still going to add here. The middle tier teams are the teams that I think are trying to go the trade route more than anything else. So I would expect a lot more trade activity over the next month or so than we have seen in recent years. So we'll see. Cooper Flagg is Rookie of the Year, I think, so far. I agree. All phases, I think he's better than any other rookie right now. Some other rookies might look a little flashier on offense. Some rookies might be better as far as rim protection. But to me, there's a complete package on the field, or on the court anyway, and that's Cooper Flagg. Can you do a Blue Jays trade for JoJo Romero? I can do that one for you, Danny. We'll do that one here in just a moment. Just got 2 more news items for us as well. One is that it should be a busy week, according to Jim Bowden, because of all the different trade talks we saw at the winter meetings. This is the week of action before we get to Christmas, so I would expect a healthy number of trades, signings to happen this week. We saw plenty of them today. One other note on the Mets edition of Jorge Polanco. Several GMs, several executives around Major League Baseball are completely mystified why they brought in Jorge Polanco. Yes, he had a nice year last year, but 2 years at $40 million total for a guy you're planning on platooning over at first base. He's 33 years old, played 1 inning there so far in his career. Not saying he can't do it. He has the ability to be a nice glove, but you had your questions defensively about Pete Alonso. You had an answer over there at first base in Pete Alonso offensively to protect Juan Soto in that lineup. Who's protecting Juan Soto in the lineup right now? Who are you going to go to? Is Murakami the guy? If strikeouts turn out to be the issue that every GM is worried about right now, he's not really the answer then, is he? Do you bring in Kyle Tucker? Do you have the financial might to go ahead and do it? I think with Cohen you can do anything financially. The question is, does David Stearns decide to spend that kind of money again for the second straight year on another cornerstone outfielder for another 10, 15 years? Big question there. And then, of course, the bigger question for them, what are they doing as far as starting pitching? Why are they letting Edwin Diaz walk? Why are you bringing in Devin Williams, who's off of a terrible first half with the New York Yankees, rebounded somewhat in the second half? But you're counting on him as your closer? You're going to go to the well again with the New York Yankees and bring in Luke Weaver and help out your bullpen again? Lots of questions in New York, not many answers. All right, appreciate you guys joining us. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe. We'll go ahead and do that mock trade for JoJo Romero, 46-6. That's a heck of a night for Cooper Flagg, even if he is going up against Utah. Ace Bailey in that matchup as well. He's a player I think has a nice offensive future, but seeing him foul out in 10 minutes one time earlier this year, I get he's young, but all right, let's go ahead and do a trade here. Let's clear this out. You say Blue Jays. Come on. And JoJo Romero. 1.3 next to nothing for value here. So if I'm the Cardinals and I'm looking for a return, it ain't going to be a hefty cost. So you're looking maybe a 1-for-1 trade here. I don't think you're looking for outfielders. I think you're looking for controllable starting pitching. I think Fisher would be a pie in the sky kind of a thing. I'd probably go a little bit cheaper here. Bloss could be an option here. He has some major league ability. He could immediately go into that pitching staff. This is a player I have had my eye on for a couple of different smaller level trades the last couple of years. Muratis, what is his value, or what is his status right now with the Blue Jays? How good of a year did he just have? Tiedemann, I think his value is really low right now. Compared to where it was anyway. There's Bloss right there. Number 8 in their system, 6.94 ERA last year, or in 24, in 25 last year, 6.46. Yuck, no thanks. Kasevich was another player I really liked last year for them. What did he end up doing? Yikes, he had a rough year as well at AAA. No thank you. A couple of down years for some prospects. That's why they're adding these guys in free agency to kind of fill some shortcomings in their system. There he is, Landon Muratis. Yikes, a 6 ERA. A-ball, though. Are the numbers there at least to support it? Walks are a big issue for him. If he can get his control down, he'd be fine. But yikes. Who else is around that value point? I'm going to take him out. I want somebody that I can hope on. Bucknam. Number 16, rookie ball. Hadn't done anything yet. 4th round pick. Let's do that one. I'll do Bucknam in this one. A 4th round pick from last year's draft. Going to the Cardinals. Game is going to overtime. They're playing without Anthony Davis tonight, who's getting the night off. Daniel Gafford was back for the Mavericks. But I like this trade. Blue Jays get Romero to help out in their bullpen. Cardinals get an arm they can hope on. Probably going to take some time until he gets up to the big leagues, but I like this deal for both sides. So there's your deal, Daniel. Thanks for that compliment. I appreciate that. If you guys are new here, be sure to hit that like and subscribe. We did have quite a few different news items. Like I said, if you guys are just joining us, we went through a whole page of different items I was kind of taking notes on as I was working today, going through all the different headlines, trying to keep up with everything for you guys. So be sure to start over at the beginning of the video. The YouTube does allow you to speed up the content if you guys want to speed read or speed watch these things. I like to do that as well because I don't got all day to watch YouTube. So if I can play it at 1.25 speed, 1.5 speed, makes it a lot easier to watch these videos that do take a little bit longer. So thank you guys for joining us tonight. Try to catch up on a few more of these comments here, and then probably head out for the evening. Got an early start to the day tomorrow, and then tomorrow night we'll be live right at 9 o'clock. So be sure to join us as well. Mavs going to OT. I did just see that one. Harper bat third. Kyle hit fourth. Garcia fifth. That is how I would like the top of the lineup for the Phillies. It's kind of how I picture it as well. I would probably hit Garcia in that 6-7 hole until he shows he's ready for the 5-6, or in that 3-4-5-6 range. I'd probably hit him 6 or 7 more than likely, just to take the pressure off of him. Like, the one worry I had for him going to a team like Pittsburgh is you're going to have to put him at number 3, number 4 in your lineup. And to me, that's just, we're expecting you to carry our offense. You're the ALCS MVP from 23. You're the guy we can really hope for. We're going to give you all the at-bats you want. Yeah, but I wasn't very good last year. I struggled with my swing selection. I struggled with strikeouts. I struggled with consistently being in the lineup due to, issues, soft tissue injuries, those kinds of things. If you put him in that situation, I think he's going to struggle. I would put Garcia at 7 until he's, like you would, Ethan, there, until he's ready for it, until he shows that the work that he's getting from their hitting coach, I forget what his name is up now. Long, is it Kevin Long, the name I've been thinking of? He's their hitting coach. He's one of the better ones in the game anyway. And I think, just allowing him to be comfortable, get used to not having to carry the offense every single day is going to work wonders for Adolis Garcia. He can sit back and wait for his pitch. He's going to allow these other guys in the lineup to see a little bit more pitches. You're going to fear giving up the home run to Adolis Garcia, because you have other guys in the lineup as well that you have to pitch to. And by the same token, you're going to fear giving the home run up to Bryce Harper, but now you have to face Adolis Garcia. Lots of options that the Phillies now have in that lineup. I really like the addition of Adolis Garcia to the Phillies. I think that is A+. Might be one of my favorite signings after the offseason is all said and done. Might go down as my favorite signing of the offseason so far. I think that it's just an A+. Couldn't have done any better. Now, could they have done a longer-term deal? I wouldn't have done it. I probably would have done like a mutual options never work, but I don't think you would have agreed to a team option. But I would have tried to push for a 1 year with a team option for $17 million or something like that. That basically, if he had a great first year in Philadelphia and he could reset his market as he's only 32 years old, he could get to free agency at 33 if the team wasn't comfortable paying $17 million. Or if he had a really good year in Philadelphia, at least it's a good enough number to where he'd still be making good money and hit free agency at 34 years old. But either way, I really like the deal. Might be my favorite signing so far of the offseason. Just really love that contract. More than anything else, I just love the fit of Adolis going to Philadelphia, where he's not going to have everything on him. Rangers without Corey Seager, everything was on Adolis Garcia. Locksmart, Bader better fit for Philadelphia, or better fit for Philly than Garcia. I mean, in center, sure, as the versatility player, yes. But as far as a difference-making bat that you thought Nick Castellanos was going to be for you, Garcia very well could be that and then some, and it's only a 1-year deal. So if it doesn't work out, hey, it's a 1-year deal. We are ridding ourselves of Nick Castellanos anyway. This is the best replacement we could have right now in free agency for him. To me, this is the Max Kepler last year. This is around that 1 year, $10, $12 million that Kepler signed with the Phillies last year that they're doing now with Adolis Garcia. Which player would you rather have? Former ALCS MVP or Max Kepler? To me, that's the type of move I'm seeing this. I think Bader could still happen. I think Bader and Garcia would be A+ moves, both of them, for the outfield for Philadelphia. But for me, Garcia fits more of the Castellanos-Kepler argument than he does the center field Bader, Buxton, Luis Robert argument. I'd rather have Garcia in that corner outfield, obviously, discussion with Castellanos, and he fits better in that spot right now than Castellanos. All right, let's head over to X, see if anything else is happening at the moment. Miguel Sano finalizing a deal internationally. I have my feelings on the player, I'll put it that way. I didn't view him as the great player that he was, or that people viewed him as in Minnesota. Again, I'm a Twins fan, and I didn't really care for him. If you look at any of the off-the-field stuff that happened with a reporter there, let's just say there are better human beings on the planet. If you guys want to look up those stories, go for it. Let's just say you're in for a very distasteful read, that you're in for a very, how do I put this, oppressive read as well. Just the way his behavior was with some of the female reporters of the Minnesota Twins that were covering the team was very disgusting, to say the least. To say that I'm happy he's out of baseball is an understatement. I hope he never comes back. I don't care how he does internationally. By all means, go out there, go out there, do your thing, be a great player out there. I don't want to see him in a major league uniform ever again. Sorry. All right, let's keep it going here. Anything else happening this evening? There's your shortstop once again. Kim back to the Braves. Nothing too newsy as of late. Let's head over. Oh, got a notification. Let me see what that is. That's the overtime thing with Cooper Flagg. Really excited to see what Dallas does with Anthony Davis at the deadline. It's going to be fascinating. All right, and then just double check on here, see if anything else is happening. Braves making room for Kim by designating Bitto. And that's about it. All right. Appreciate you guys sticking with us. A little longer stream than usual, but like I said, so many things were happening today. And like I said, we're expecting a very newsy week, so be sure to join us promptly at 9 o'clock tomorrow night. We're going to break down all the latest from the MLB Hot Stove. Lots to get into today, over the weekend. A lot happened, and I'm expecting another busy day tomorrow. If you guys are new here, be sure to turn on those notifications. Hit that subscribe, like the video, comment, tell us where you're watching from. If we're not live and you're watching this, when you're at work tomorrow, please feel free to send a comment to us. I do check those out every now and again just to kind of see what you guys are interested in and what you guys want to hear about. So if there's a story out there that I'm missing, if you guys see a rumor that I miss and you guys want to talk about it, or if I don't talk about it on the show, please feel free to send it to me. I'd love to talk about those things with you guys. That's why I have the channel. I love talking baseball, love talking sports in general, and that's why I have this channel, to just enjoy those types of conversations with you guys. Told you guys when I started this channel, part of the reason why I started is because I'm no longer at home with Dad and so forth when I was younger, and I really enjoyed all the sports conversations we'd have every single day. It was how we got, how we bonded and so forth. But over the years, as you move out and you get older, and move around from house to house to house as you get older, and move job to job as you get older, just time passes. I was kind of missing that connection, that ability to talk about sports with people that actually knew what they were talking about, to say the least. Coworkers don't cut it when you basically say, "Hey, did you see that game last night?" And they're like, "Game? You mean American Idol?" And then you just move on. You don't talk about it at that point. And so having a community like this has been really nice, to be able to talk about sports of all kinds, and just be able to have some fun with you guys, and still talk to my dad about sports as much as I can. But being able to still enjoy the connection with sports with you guys is one way I really get to enjoy reliving some of those memories I had talking about sports with my dad, being able to enjoy all the great stories in sports and all the crazy things that happen. And with the MLB offseason now in full swing, I'm going to say full swing now because the winter meetings were dead. This week will probably be a lot more newsy than the winter meetings was, or winter meetings were, but should be a very fun day. But appreciate you guys joining us this evening. Detroit put a whoop on Boston tonight. Hope Detroit doesn't trade for Anthony Davis. I don't think they will. Detroit basically said we're not interested. The team I really want to see Anthony Davis go to, the Atlanta Hawks. I just think Kristaps Porzingis coming back with garbage, along with a couple of first round picks, or if they hold out and they're try to create a bidding war, which Davis has played really well so far. If he can play as well as he's been and still be healthy at the deadline, I think you could probably pry that Pelicans pick out of Atlanta. I'm not saying they should trade that pick for Anthony Davis. I'm just saying that you could make an argument, instead of bringing in Trae Young or whatever else from Atlanta, that you could pry that Pelicans pick out of Atlanta. And expiring deals, turnaround trade KP, etc. But I want that Pelicans pick. If you want to make this trade with me, Atlanta, I don't want Risha Shea. I don't want Trae Young. I want that Pelicans pick. That's what I would hold out for. Would I do it if I'm Atlanta? Hell no. But if I'm Dallas, I could probably convince them to give it up. This is a wide open year in the East, and if you want a real chance at getting to the NBA Finals, sure, you might have to go up against Oklahoma City, but that might be your best chance to get there and win it. I don't think Atlanta's getting to the NBA Finals anytime soon without that type of a move. You might want to build up and hold on to that pick and build for the future, all those kinds of things. But how often have we talked about Atlanta being a dynasty in the NBA? It's not often. So when you have an opportunity like this, push your chips to the center, go for it, and just live with the consequences. All right. If you got time, I always enjoy this channel. Plus, we are Rangers fans. Absolutely. All right. I appreciate you guys joining us this evening. Be sure to hit that like, subscribe. We'll be back live with you guys again tomorrow, 9 o'clock. Be sure to join us then. Say hello. Let us know where you're watching from. All those kinds of things. The hearts in the chat, I do see those. Thank you for those. The likes on the video as well are really helpful. You guys have no idea how much it helps when you guys interact with the channel. If you guys want to support the channel, please feel free to say hello. Just interacting is great. If you want to send super chats to support us, donations are always welcome as well. But appreciate you guys. Y'all have a great evening out there. We'll see you guys again tomorrow, 9 o'clock.